The galaxy had known peace for 300 years. But it was not a good peace. It was the peace of fear. It was the peace of silence. It was the peace that comes when everyone is too afraid to speak. The Valen Empire ruled everything. Their ships filled the stars like locusts. Their soldiers marched on 1,000 worlds. Their flag flew over planets that had once been free, and no one could stop them. The Valen were tall creatures with gray skin and cold eyes. They believed they were better than everyone else. They believed the galaxy belonged to them. And for 300 years, no one had proven them wrong. Captain Jake Mason sat alone in his quarters on the TSS Defiance. The room was small and simple. A bed, a desk, a single window that showed the endless darkness of space. He was reading a book about Earth history. He liked to read about the old wars. The wars when humans fought each other. The wars before they knew they were not alone in the universe. A knock came at his door. "Come in," Jake said. The door opened and Lieutenant Grace Kim walked inside. She was his first officer. She had served with him for 5 years. She was smart and brave, and she never lied to him. That was why he trusted her. "Captain, we received a distress signal," Grace said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were worried. Jake put down his book. "From where?" "Nexus 7. It is a small colony in the Outer Rim, mostly farmers and miners. About 50,000 people. What happened to them?" Grace took a deep breath. "The Valen happened. They put a blockade around the planet. No ships can enter or leave. No food, no medicine, no help." Jake stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked at the stars. "How long has the blockade been there?" 3 weeks. "The people are starving, Captain. Children are dying." Jake closed his eyes. He thought about the 50,000 people on that small planet. He thought about the children who did not understand why no one was coming to help them. He thought about the parents who had to watch their family suffer. Why did the Valen blockade them? He asked. The colony refused to pay the new taxes. The Emperor wanted more money. The people of Nexus 7 said they had nothing left to give. So the Valen decided to make an example of them. Jake turned to face Grace. "How many Valen ships are around the planet?" 40 warships, led by High Admiral Vextel. The name made Jake's jaw tighten. He knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Vextel was the most feared commander in the Valen fleet. He had destroyed entire civilizations. He had killed millions without mercy. He enjoyed causing pain. 40 ships, Jake said quietly. "And we have one." Grace nodded. "Yes, Captain. We have one." They stood in silence for a long moment. The Defiance was alone out here. The nearest Terran fleet was weeks away. If they called for help, Nexus 7 would be dead before anyone arrived. "What do the regulations say?" Jake asked. "The regulations say we should report the situation and wait for orders. We should not enter Imperial space without permission. We should not engage enemy forces without support." Jake almost smiled. "And what do you say, Grace?" Grace looked at him with steady eyes. "I say there are 50,000 people dying while we stand here talking about regulations." Jake nodded slowly. He had made his decision the moment he heard about the children. The regulations were important. Following orders was important. But some things were more important than rules and orders. Some things were about being human. He pressed a button on his desk. "Commander Cole, report to the bridge." A voice answered immediately. "On my way, Captain." Jake and Grace walked together through the corridors of the Defiance. The ship was not very big. It had a crew of 212 people. It was not the strongest ship in the Terran fleet. It was not the fastest. But it was special in ways that the Valen could not understand. When they reached the bridge, Commander Ryan Cole was already waiting. He was the chief tactical officer. He was a big man with a shaved head and arms covered in old scars. He had been a soldier his whole life. He had fought in battles that most people only read about in books. "What is the situation, Captain?" Ryan asked. Jake told him about Nexus 7. He told him about the blockade. He told him about the starving children and the 40 Terran warships. Ryan listened without speaking. When Jake finished, Ryan simply nodded. "When do we leave?" Ryan asked. "Now," Jake said. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Ensign Amy Park sat at the communication station. She was young, only 23 years old, but she was one of the best officers he had ever worked with. Chief Engineer Mike Torres was checking the engine readings on his console. Dr. Emily Stone was reviewing data at the science station. These were good people. Brave people. They had families back on Earth. They had lives they wanted to return to. And Jake was about to ask them to fly into almost certain death. "Listen to me," Jake said. His voice was not loud, but everyone heard him. "I am not going to order anyone to do this. What I am asking is dangerous. It might be impossible. We are one ship against 40. The smart thing to do would be to wait for help." He paused and looked at each of them. "But there are people dying right now. Children are crying for food that will never come. Parents are watching their families waste away. And we are the only ones close enough to do something about it." No one spoke. No one moved. "If anyone wants to leave, I will not blame you. I will put you on a shuttle, and you can wait here until we return. There will be no punishment. No shame." Silence filled the bridge. Then Amy Park spoke. "Captain, my grandmother used to tell me stories about Earth, about the old days when humans thought they were alone. She said we were always fighting each other, always hurting each other. But when something bad happened, when people needed help, we always came together." She turned to face Jake with determination in her eyes. "I did not join the fleet to be safe. I joined to make a difference. I am staying." One by one, every person on the bridge said the same thing. Ryan Cole, Grace Kim, Mike Torres, Emily Stone. All of them chose to stay. Jake felt something warm in his chest. Pride, hope, love for these incredible people who were willing to risk everything for strangers they had never met. "Set a course for Nexus 7, Jake said. "Maximum speed." The Defiance turned toward Imperial space. Its engines glowed bright blue as it accelerated into the darkness. Behind them was safety. Ahead of them was an enemy fleet that had never known defeat. But Jake Mason was not afraid. He had learned something in his years among the stars. The Valen were powerful because everyone believed they were powerful. They were unbeatable because no one had ever tried to beat them. Today, that would change. The Defiance jumped into hyperspace, and the stars stretched into lines of light. Somewhere ahead, 40 warships waited. Somewhere ahead, a monster named Vexthal sat on his throne of fear. He did not know what was coming that no one did. The Valen fleet hung in space like a wall of death. 40 warships formed a perfect circle around Nexus 7, their weapons pointed at the small blue planet below. Their scanners watched for any ship foolish enough to approach. High Admiral Vexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was old for a Valen, nearly 400 years. His gray skin had turned almost white with age. His eyes were yellow and filled with cruelty. He had killed more beings than he could count. He had destroyed worlds just to watch them burn. And he was bored. How long until the colony surrenders? He asked. Fleet Commander Nexra checked his data screen. "They are running out of food, High Admiral. Perhaps another week. Maybe 2. Vexthal made a sound of disgust. "Weak creatures. They should have surrendered immediately. Instead, They chose to watch their children starve. Pathetic. He walked to the large window at the front of the bridge. The planet Nexus 7 looked peaceful from here. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds. It was a beautiful world. Soon it would be a dead world. A warning to anyone else who dared to refuse the Empire. High Admiral, a young officer, called out. We are detecting a ship approaching from hyperspace. Vexthal did not even turn around. Destroy it. Wait, sir. The ship. It is coming from Terran space. Now Vexthal turned. His yellow eyes narrowed. Terran, are you certain? Yes, High Admiral. The ship is broadcasting Terran identification codes. Nexra stepped forward with confusion on his face. The Terrans? They have not left their own territory in centuries. They are cowards. They hide on their little planet and pretend the rest of the galaxy does not exist. Vexthal remembered the Terrans. 300 years ago, the Empire had discovered their planet. Earth, they called it. A small blue world filled with primitive creatures who had just learned to travel between stars. The Valen had watched them for a while and decided they were not worth conquering. They were weak. They were divided. They fought among themselves constantly. The Empire had left them alone. It was easier to ignore them than to waste resources on such a pathetic species. But now a Terran ship was coming here? To Imperial space? To his fleet? Interesting, Vexthal said. A small smile appeared on his ancient face. Let them arrive. I want to see what the humans have become. The TSS's defiance dropped out of hyperspace like a shadow emerging from darkness. On the bridge, Jake Mason looked at the tactical display. 40 red dots surrounded the planet. Each dot was a Valen warship. Each warship had enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Wow, Ryan Cole said slowly. There are definitely 40 of them. 42, actually, Amy Park corrected. 2 more ships are hiding behind the planet's moon. Jake nodded. He had expected something like this. The Valen always kept reserve forces hidden. It was one of their favorite tricks. Open a channel to the enemy fleet, Jake ordered. All frequencies. Amy's fingers moved across her console. Channel open, Captain. Jake stood up from his chair. He straightened his uniform and looked directly at the main screen. He knew the Valen were watching. He knew they were recording everything. Good. He wanted them to remember this moment. This is Captain Jake Mason of the Terran spaceship Defiance. I am addressing the Valen fleet currently blockading the planet Nexus 7 on the Eternal Dominion. Vexthal watched the human speak. He was surprised by what he saw. The human was calm. His voice was steady. There was no fear in his eyes. Vexthal had seen countless species beg for mercy when facing his fleet. But this human acted like he was ordering food at a restaurant. Your blockade is causing innocent people to starve, Jake continued. Children are dying because of your actions. This is unacceptable. I am giving you one chance to withdraw your ships and allow humanitarian aid to reach the planet. Nexra burst out laughing. Is this creature insane? One ship? He brings one ship against our entire fleet and demands we surrender? Other Valen officers joined in the laughter. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion filled with sounds of mockery and amusement. But Vexthal did not laugh. He was watching the human carefully. There was something strange here. Something wrong. No commander would bring a single ship to face 40 enemies unless they knew something others did not. If you do not withdraw, Jake said, I will be forced to take action. You have 5 minutes to make your decision. The transmission ended. Nexra wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. High Admiral, let me destroy this fool. It will take only seconds. Vexthal was silent for a long moment. He studied the image of the Terran ship on his screen. It was not a large vessel. It was black, darker than space itself. Its design was different from anything he had seen before. There were no visible weapons, no obvious engine ports. It looked almost like a piece of the void had taken shape and started flying. "Scan that ship," Vexthal ordered. "I want to know everything about it." Officers worked at their stations. Seconds passed. Then the scanning officer looked up with confusion on his face. "Hi, Admiral. Our scanners cannot penetrate the ship's hull. We are getting no readings at all. It is like trying to scan empty space." Vexthal felt something he had not felt in a very long time. A tiny spark of doubt. "No matter," Nexra said impatiently. "Whatever tricks they have, they cannot fight 40 ships. Hi, Admiral. Give me the order." Vexthal made his decision. He would not show weakness. Not in front of his officers. Not in front of the galaxy. All ships, open fire on the Terran vessel. Maximum power. 40 Valan warships turned their weapons toward the Defiance. Thousands of plasma cannons charged with deadly energy. Missile bays opened. Energy beams powered up. Then they fired. The space around the Defiance exploded with light. Plasma bolts streaked through the void like angry stars. Missiles flew in spiraling patterns. Energy beams cut through the darkness. It was enough firepower to destroy a planet. On the bridge of the Defiance, Amy Park announced calmly, 2,347 incoming projectiles. Grace Kim looked at Jake. "Orders, Captain?" Jake sat back in his chair. "Activate the Aegis protocol." Mike Torres pressed a button on his console. Aegis protocol activated. A shimmer appeared around the Defiance. It was barely visible at first, just a slight distortion in space. Then the first plasma bolts reached the ship. They vanished. Every single shot disappeared the moment it touched the shimmering field. The plasma dissolved into harmless light. The missiles deactivated and fell apart. The energy beams scattered in all directions. Nothing touched the hull. Nothing came close on the Eternal Dominion. Absolute silence fell across the bridge. Officers stared at their screens with their mouths open. Nexra's face turned pale gray. Even Vexthal, who had seen wonders and horrors beyond counting, could not believe what his eyes were showing him. "That is impossible," Nexra whispered. "No shield can stop that much firepower." "It is impossible." Vexthal said nothing. He watched as the Terran ship sat completely undamaged in the center of his fleet's combined assault. The shimmering field around it faded away as if nothing had happened. Then the human captain appeared on his screen again. "I warned you," Jake Mason said. His voice was still calm, but now there was something cold in it. Something dangerous. "You had your chance. Now I will show you why humanity was never conquered." Vexthal found his voice. "What are you?" Jake smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "We are what happens when you ignore a species for 300 years. We are what happens when you give your enemies time to prepare. We are human. And today, High Admiral, you are going to learn what that means." The Defiance began to move. And everything the Valan Empire believed about the universe was about to change forever. Jake Mason walked through the corridors of the Eternal Dominion alone. His crew had wanted to come with him. Grace had argued for 20 minutes. Ryan had volunteered to bring a squad of armed soldiers, but Jake had refused. He needed to do this by himself. He needed to show the Valans something they had never seen before, a human without fear. The hallways of the Valan flagship were dark and cold. Emergency lights glowed a dim red, giving everything the color of blood. Valan soldiers lined the walls, watching Jake pass with eyes full of confusion and anger. They still held their weapons. They could have attacked him at any moment, but they did not. They had seen what one Terran ship could do. They did not want to know what would happen if they harmed its captain. Jake walked steadily, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. He looked at the soldiers as he passed. Some of them were young, barely adults by Valen standards. Others were old veterans with scars covering their bodies. All of them had the same expression on their faces. Fear. Jake remembered a time when humans had been the ones who were afraid. When the Valen Empire had first appeared in Earth's sky 300 years ago, humanity had trembled. They had watched the massive ships block out the sun. They had waited for the invasion that never came. The Valen had looked at Earth and decided it was not worth their time. Humans were primitive, weak, divided. They fought among themselves constantly. They had barely reached their own moon. They were insects. The Empire had moved on to more important targets. They had forgotten about the little blue planet and its pathetic inhabitants. That was their greatest mistake. Jake reached the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The door slid open and he stepped inside. The room was large and impressive, designed to show the power of the Valen Empire. Golden decorations covered the walls. Precious gems sparkled in patterns that represented conquered worlds. A great throne sat at the center, raised above everything else. High Admiral Vexthul waited there. He was standing now, his ceremonial blade drawn and glowing with energy. His yellow eyes burned with hatred. "Human," Vexthul said. His voice echoed through the silent bridge. "You come here alone? You are either very brave or very stupid." Jake stopped a few meters from the Admiral. "I am neither. I am simply not afraid of you. You should be. I have killed more beings than you can imagine. I have destroyed civilizations. I have burned worlds. One small human cannot stand against me. And yet, here I am, standing." Vexthul growled and raised his blade higher. "Do you know how easy it would be for me to kill you right now? One swing. That is all it would take. One swing and your head would roll across this floor." Jake did not move. He did not blink. "You could try, but we both know what would happen if you did. Your ship would kill us all. Yes, and every other Valen ship in this system. And then my fleet would come for your homeworld, and your colonies, and every single planet that flies your flag." Jake tilted his head slightly. "Is that what you want, High Admiral? To start a war you cannot win?" Vexthul's blade trembled in his hands. He wanted to swing. Every instinct in his body told him to strike down this arrogant creature. But something stopped him. Something in the human's eyes. A certainty that went beyond bravery. 300 years ago, Jake said slowly, your empire found Earth. You looked at us and saw nothing worth conquering. We were primitive. We were weak. We were fighting among ourselves for scraps of land and resources. He took a step closer. You decided to ignore us. You thought we were not worth your attention. You moved on to other species, other worlds, other conquests. And we watched. Another step. We watched your ships travel between stars. We studied your weapons, your shields, your engines. We captured your probes and took them apart piece by piece. We learned everything about how you fight. Another step. And then we did something the Valen never do. We worked together. Every nation on Earth. Every scientist. Every engineer. Every soldier. We put aside our differences and focused on one goal. Survival. Jake was close now. Close enough to touch. Vexthul could smell him. A strange alien scent of fear and determination mixed together. But the fear was not for himself. It was something else. You gave us 300 years, High Admiral. 300 years to prepare. 300 years to build. 300 years to create technologies you cannot even imagine. And you never once thought to check on us. You never wondered what we might become. Jake's eyes hardened. That was your mistake. Silence did not mean submission. Silence meant patience. We were waiting, preparing, building our strength while you grew lazy and confident. Vexthul's blade lowered slowly. He did not want to lower it. His body moved on its own, responding to something deeper than pride. "What do you want?" Vexthal asked. His voice was quiet now, broken. "I want you to deliver a message to your Emperor. Tell him what happened here today. Tell him that one Terran ship destroyed his fleet without firing a single shot. Tell him that the species he ignored for 3 centuries is no longer ignoring him." Jake reached out and gently pushed the blade aside. Vexthal did not resist. "Tell him that the age of the Valan Empire is ending. Tell him that every world you have conquered, every species you have enslaved, every planet you have bled dry, they will all hear about today. They will learn that the Empire can be defeated, and they will start to hope." "Hope," Vexthal whispered. "You cannot build a rebellion on hope." "No, but you can start one. Hope is a spark, High Admiral. And right now, I am spreading sparks across your entire empire." The bridge doors opened. Grace Kim walked in, followed by Ryan Cole and a team of Terran soldiers. They moved quickly and efficiently, taking control of the ship's systems and securing the Valan officers. Grace approached Jake. "Captain, we have full control of the flagship. The other ships are also secured. Humanitarian vessels from Nexus 7 are reporting that aid has begun reaching the planet." Jake nodded. "Good. Make sure the Valan crews are treated with respect. They are not our enemies. They are just soldiers following orders." Grace looked surprised. "Sir? The soldiers did not create the Empire. The Emperor did. The admirals did. The politicians did. Regular people just do what they are told. They are not evil. They are just afraid." Grace thought about this for a moment, then nodded. "Understood, Captain." Jake turned back to Vexthal. The old admiral looked lost, like a child whose world had just been destroyed. In a way, it had been. "I could kill you," Jake said. "No one would blame me. You have done terrible things. You have caused suffering beyond measure. By any standard of justice, you deserve death." Vexthal said nothing. He simply waited. "But that is not who we are. Humans have done terrible things too. We have fought wars. We have killed each other. We have been cruel and selfish and stupid. But we have also learned. We have grown. We have become better than we were." Jake placed a hand on Vexthal's shoulder. The Admiral flinched at the touch. "Go home, Vexthal. Tell your Emperor what you saw. Tell him that humanity does not want war. We do not want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to live in peace. But if the Empire comes for us, if you try to destroy what we have built," Jake leaned closer and whispered, "we will end you, not with hatred, not with cruelty, but with the cold efficiency of a species that learned long ago that survival requires sacrifice. We will not enjoy it, but we will do it." He stepped back. "The choice is yours, peace or war. Life or death. Choose wisely." Jake turned and walked away, leaving the broken admiral standing alone in the ruins of his pride. Outside, through the great windows of the bridge, the stars shone cold and eternal. But somewhere among them, on 100 different worlds, beings were hearing the news. A Terran ship had defeated the Valan fleet. The Empire was not invincible. And for the first time in 300 years, people began to dream of freedom. The Defiance moved through the Valan fleet like a ghost through a graveyard. "Hi!" Admiral Vexthal screamed orders at his officers. "Track that ship. Lock weapons. Fire everything we have." But the Terran vessel would not stay still. It moved in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics. One moment, it was here. The next moment, it was somewhere else. The Valan targeting systems tried to follow, but they were designed for ships that moved in straight lines. The Defiance did not move in straight lines. It danced out on the bridge of the Defiance. Mike Torres watched his engine readings with wide eyes. "Captain, we are pushing the engines harder than they have ever been pushed." I do not know how long they can take this. They will take it for as long as we need, Jake said. Trust your own work, Mike. You built these engines. They are the best in the galaxy. Mike nodded and returned to his console. He had spent 10 years designing the propulsion system of the Defiance. Every part was made by human hands. Every wire was connected by human engineers. The Valen used machines to build their ships. Humans used passion. Grace Kim studied the tactical display. The 42 Valen warships were trying to surround them, but the Defiance was too fast. Every time they closed in, the ship slipped through a gap like water through fingers. Their formation is breaking, Grace said. They are getting frustrated. Making mistakes. Good, Jake replied. Frustrated enemies make more mistakes. Ryan, are the drones ready? Ryan Cole checked his weapons station. Ready and waiting, Captain. Just say the word. Jake watched the battle unfold around them. Plasma bolts flew in every direction. Some of the Valen ships had accidentally hit each other in their desperation to destroy the Defiance. Confusion was spreading through the enemy fleet like a disease. Not yet, Jake said. Let them tire themselves out first. On the Eternal Dominion, chaos filled the bridge. Officers shouted over each other. Alarms screamed warnings. Vexthal stood in the center of it all, his ancient face twisted with rage. How is this possible? He demanded. One ship cannot move like this. One ship cannot avoid our entire fleet. Naxra was sweating, something Valen rarely did. High Admiral, our weapons cannot lock onto the target. It moves too fast. Our computers cannot predict its path. Then use manual targeting. Use your eyes. We tried, sir. By the time a gunner sees the ship and fires, it has already moved somewhere else. Vexthal grabbed Nexra by the neck. Then what do you suggest we do? Nexra could not answer. In all his years of service, he had never faced an enemy like this. The Valen had conquered the galaxy because they had superior technology. They had better weapons, better ships, better everything. But the humans had something the Valen did not understand. They had spent 300 years watching, learning, improving, while the Empire grew lazy and confident. Humanity had been working in secret, building, preparing, waiting for this moment. Dr. Emily Stone spoke up from her station. Captain, I am monitoring their communications. Their command structure is falling apart. Individual ship captains are starting to make their own decisions. Perfect, Jake said. That is exactly what we want. A fleet that does not work together is just a collection of targets. Ryan, deploy the silence protocol. Ryan Cole smiled. It was the smile of a predator. With pleasure, Captain. He pressed a sequence of buttons on his console. From the hull of the Defiance, thousands of small objects launched into space. They were tiny, no bigger than a human fist. They moved so fast that the Valen scanners could not detect them. Within seconds, they had spread throughout the enemy fleet. Drones deployed, Ryan announced. Attaching to targets now. The micro-drones were another human invention. They were designed to attach to enemy ships and interface with their systems. They did not explode. They did not cause damage. They did something much worse. They took control. One by one, the Valen warships began to change. Their engines sputtered and died. Their weapons powered down. Their lights flickered off. The great vessels of the mighty Valen Empire became nothing more than floating metal. What is happening? Vexthal stared at the tactical display. Ship after ship was going dark. Why are our ships losing power? An engineer worked frantically at his station. High Admiral, something has infiltrated our systems. Small devices attached to our hulls. They are shutting everything down. Remove them. Destroy them. We cannot, sir. They have locked us out of our own computers. We have no control. Vexthal watched in horror as his entire fleet died around him. 42 warships, the pride of the Valan Empire, reduced to helpless hulks in a matter of minutes. And the human ship had not fired a single weapon. On the Defiance, the bridge crew watched the results of their work. Amy Park had tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. Grace Kim let out a breath she had been holding. Even Ryan Cole, who had seen many battles, looked impressed. All enemy vessels disabled, Emily Stone reported. Life support systems are still functioning on all ships. No casualties detected. Jake nodded. This was important. The Defiance had not come here to kill. It had come to prove a point. There was a difference between showing strength and showing cruelty. The Valan had never learned that lesson. Open a channel to the enemy flagship, Jake ordered. Amy worked her console. Channel open, Captain. Vexthal's face appeared on the main screen. He looked older now, smaller. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. In its place was something the High Admiral had not felt in centuries: fear. High Admiral Vexthal, Jake said. Your fleet is disabled. Your weapons are offline. You cannot call for help because we have blocked all your communications. You are completely at our mercy. Vexthal tried to speak, but his voice cracked. What do you want? I want you to listen carefully. The blockade of Nexus 7 is over. You will allow humanitarian ships to bring food and medicine to the planet. You will release all prisoners you have taken. You will leave this system and never return. And if I refuse, Jake leaned forward slightly. Then I will turn off your life support systems and let you suffocate in the darkness of space. It will take about 4 hours. I am told it is a very unpleasant way to die. Vexthal's face went pale. You would not dare. That would be murder, would it? You have killed millions, High Admiral. You have destroyed entire worlds for refusing to pay taxes. You have watched children starve and called it justice. Do you really want to lecture me about murder? Silence stretched between them. I am giving you a choice, Jake continued. The same choice you gave to Nexus 7. The same choice the Empire has given to countless species. Surrender or die. But unlike the Empire, I hope you choose to live. I do not want to kill anyone today. I just want to save innocent people. On the Eternal Dominion, Vexthal looked around his darkened bridge. His officers stared at him with hopeless eyes. His fleet floated uselessly around him. Everything he had believed, everything he had built his life upon, was crumbling. The Valan was supposed to be invincible. The Empire was supposed to rule forever. One small human ship was not supposed to change everything, but it had. Vexthal lowered his head. We surrender. Jake let the words hang in the air for a moment. Then he nodded. A wise decision. We will be boarding your ship shortly to ensure compliance. If you try anything foolish, remember that we can disable your life support with a single command. The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew erupted in celebration. Mike Torres let out a wild cheer. Amy Park hugged the officer next to her. Even the normally serious Grace Kim was smiling widely. Jake remained in his chair, watching the disabled fleet through the main window. He did not feel like celebrating. He knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would not let this stand. There would be consequences. There would be revenge, but for now, for this moment, they had won. Grace, Jake said quietly, contact Nexus 7. Tell them help is on the way. Grace nodded, her eyes bright with emotion. Yes, Captain. Jake looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, word of today's events would spread. Other oppressed worlds would hear what happened. They would learn that the Empire could be defeated. That hope was not foolish. Today, one Terran ship had changed the galaxy. Tomorrow, everything would be different. The news spread faster than light itself. On every world under Valen control, people heard the story. A single Terran ship had faced 42 Imperial warships and won. Not through violence, not through destruction, but through technology so advanced that the greatest fleet in the galaxy had been made helpless. The empire that had ruled for 300 years was not invincible. The Valen could be defeated. On the planet Nexus 7, food and medicine poured down from the sky. Ships from Earth and other free worlds landed in fields and cities, bringing everything the starving colonists needed. Children who had been too weak to walk were now eating fresh bread and drinking clean water. Parents who had given up hope were crying tears of joy. A young girl named Sarah held her mother's hand as they watched a Terran supply ship unload crates of supplies. She was only 7 years old. She did not understand politics or war or interstellar empires. She only knew that she had been very hungry, and now she was not. "Mama," she said, "who are those people?" Her mother smiled through her tears. "They are humans, my dear. They came to help us. Why? Because that is what good people do. They help others who are suffering, even if it is dangerous." The little girl watched the human workers moving crates and handing out food. She saw them smiling, laughing, hugging the colonists they had come to save. She did not see conquerors or warriors. She saw friends. "I like them," she said. "So do I, my dear." So do I. Across the galaxy, the Valen Emperor received High Admiral Vexthal's report. The ancient ruler sat on his throne of bones and listened in silence. As his greatest admiral described the humiliation at Nexus-7, the Emperor was over 1,000 years old. He had ruled the Empire since before most species in the galaxy had developed language. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed civilizations, and eliminated anyone who threatened his power. He had thought himself eternal, immortal, a god among insects. Now he felt something he had not felt in 500 years. Double quotes. How is this possible? The Emperor demanded. How did one primitive species develop such technology? We have the greatest scientists in the galaxy. We have been studying warfare for millennia. How did humans surpass us? His advisors had no answers. They stood before him with their heads bowed, trembling with fear. The Emperor had killed servants for much smaller failures than this. They were watching us, an old advisor finally said. For 300 years, they observed our every move. They learned our tactics, our weapons, our weaknesses, and they prepared. Why did we not notice? Why did our spies not report their progress? Because they hid it, Your Majesty. They pretended to be weak while building strength in secret. By the time we might have noticed, it was too late. The Emperor slammed his fist against his throne. The sound echoed through the vast hall like thunder. Then we must destroy them now, before they grow stronger. Send every fleet we have to their home system. Burn their planet to ash. The advisors exchanged nervous glances. Finally, the oldest among them spoke. Your Majesty, that would not be wise. Explain. The humans did not reveal all their power at Nexus 7. They showed us just enough to defeat our fleet. If they have one ship capable of such things, they may have hundreds, thousands. We do not know what other surprises they have prepared. And attacking them would unite them further, another advisor added. Right now, they are content to stay in their own territory. If we threaten their home, they may decide to take the war to us. We would be fighting an enemy we do not understand, on terms we cannot control. The Emperor sat in silence for a long moment. His ancient mind processed the information, weighing options, calculating outcomes. He had not survived this long by being reckless. He had survived by being patient, by waiting for the right moment. Very well, he finally said. We will not attack Earth. Not yet. But I want our scientists to study everything about this encounter. I want to know how human technology works. I want to know how to defeat it. And the rebellions, Your Majesty? The Emperor's eyes narrowed. What rebellions? News of Nexus 7 has spread. Worlds that have been quiet for centuries are now questioning our rule. There have been protests, demonstrations. Some colonies are openly refusing to pay taxes. Crush them. We are trying, Your Majesty. But every time we destroy one rebellion, two more appear. The story of the Terran ship has given people hope. And hope is very difficult to kill. The Emperor looked out the great window of his throne room. Beyond the glass, his capital world stretched to the horizon. Massive buildings rose like mountains. Countless ships filled the sky. Billions of subjects lived and worked and died at his command. But somewhere out there, far across the galaxy, a tiny blue planet had just changed everything. The species he had dismissed as worthless had become his greatest threat. Hope, the Emperor whispered. Such a small word to cause such large problems. On Earth, Captain Jake Mason stood before the Terran Council. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from every nation on the planet. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. The most powerful humans in existence had gathered to hear his report. Jake told them everything. The battle. The surrender. The message he had delivered to High Admiral Vexthul. When he finished, silence filled the hall. Then the president of the United Earth government stood up. She was an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She had led humanity through some of its darkest hours. Now she was smiling. Captain Mason, she said, you have done something today that no human has done before. You have shown the galaxy that we are not prey. We are not victims. We are a force to be respected. The hall erupted in applause. Jake stood quietly, accepting the praise without letting it affect him. He knew the truth. The battle at Nexus 7 was just the beginning. Harder days were coming. When the applause died down, Jake spoke again. Madam President, I must be honest with you. The Empire will not accept this defeat quietly. They will try to learn our secrets. They will try to find our weaknesses. Eventually, they may try to destroy us. We know, the President replied. We've been preparing for this moment for 300 years. We are not afraid. I know we are not afraid. But we must also be wise. We should not seek war with the Empire. We should not become conquerors ourselves. That is not who we are. Grace Kim, who stood beside Jake, stepped forward. The captain is right. We fought today to save innocent lives, not to start an empire of our own. We must remember why we built our strength in the first place. The president nodded slowly. To protect, not to conquer. Yes, Jake said. The galaxy has seen enough empires. What they need now is something different. They need to see that power can be used for good. That strength can be used to help the weak instead of crushing them. The council members murmured among themselves. Some agreed with Jake. Others wanted to take a more aggressive approach. The debate would continue for months, perhaps years. But for now, there was something to celebrate. That night, Jake stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. The planet hung below him, beautiful and blue and alive. Light sparkled on the night side as billions of humans went about their lives, most of them unaware of what had happened today. Grace joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Jake and stood beside him in comfortable silence. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked finally. Jake sipped his coffee. I think we did what we had to do. Whether it was right, only time will tell. The Empire will come for us eventually. You know that. Yes, but not today. And not tomorrow. We bought time, Grace. Time for other species to find their courage. Time for the Empire to weaken from within. Time for hope to spread. Grace looked at Earth through the window. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the old days. Before we knew about the Valen. Before we knew about any of it. He said humans spent most of their history fighting each other. We did. But when the threat came, we put aside our differences. We worked together. We became something greater than we were. Jake nodded. That is what humans do. We fight and argue and disagree about everything. But when it truly matters, when the stakes are highest, we find a way to come together. He thought about the crew of the Defiance. About Amy and Mike and Emily and Ryan. About the 212 people who had risked everything to save strangers they had never met. They were not special. They were not chosen ones or heroes from stories. They were just people who decided to do the right thing, and that was enough. You know what I think the biggest difference is between humans and the Valen? Jake asked. Grace shook her head. The Valen conquered the galaxy because they wanted power. They wanted control. They wanted to prove they were better than everyone else. But we did not build our strength for power. We built it because we were scared. Because we wanted to protect our families, our children, our future. He turned to face Grace. Fear made us strong, but love made us wise. The Valen will never understand that. And that is why we will win. Grace smiled. That sounds like something from a movie. Maybe, but it is also true. They stood together, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, empires trembled and rebellion stirred, and the galaxy began to wake from a 300-year nightmare. The age of the Valen was ending. The age of hope was just beginning. And humanity, the species that had been dismissed as worthless, stood at the center of it all. Not as conquerors, not as rulers,